Well, there appears to be a global social media outage. It's not clear exactly what is causing it. I think that there's going to be probably a lot of fallout from this. It doesn't seem to be an accident because it is affecting initially, all the Facebook-owned properties, Facebook itself, Instagram, and WhatsApp. Um, and then it seems like other sites have been starting to have problems. Telegram, and then Twitter was having some issues, it seems, although I seem to be accessing it fine. Um, uh, Snapchat, I guess, is still up. My guess is that to the extent that there was an attack, it seems that the attack was focused on Facebook-owned properties, and then perhaps as users started to flee to using other sites, all of the traffic was concentrated on sites like Twitter or Telegram or what have you. Although I would think Telegram to a much lesser degree. Uh, I think Twitter is definitely the dominant, alternative to Facebook, even though it's quite different, as most of you probably know. Um, and that's probably what's causing the problems with these other sites, is just too much traffic at once, a surge, because all of the Facebook-owned traffic is getting funneled through there, and that's kind of now the big line of communications for the world. Now, the timing of this is interesting. It's coming the day after that big 60 Minutes piece that all of the libs are talking about, where you have this Facebook whistleblower coming forward who is talking about how, oh my gosh, Facebook is not doing enough to censor the right-wingers, and how the Facebook is responsible for January 6th because they fired her because she was a part of the Civic Responsibility Council, or whatever Orwellian term they use for censorship within Facebook. After the election, everybody said, okay, Joe Biden wins, let's call it a wrap. We don't need you here anymore, so bye-bye. And then, all of a sudden, the insurrection happened. And this is supposedly Zuck's fault, because he didn't do enough to censor the right-wingers, and the right-wingers were able to plot their insidious coup attempt. And then now the next day, when you've got all of this lib rage against Facebook, Facebook goes down. All of their sites go down. I mean, I find this strange. I don't think that there's some kind of Blue Anon, Russiagator hacking group that somehow was able to take down Facebook. I'm quite intrigued to see what this ends up being. I think the simplest explanation is that this is a warning. It's a warning to Facebook, and perhaps it's a warning to other companies who step outside a line and don't do exactly what they're told to a T, that they can be crippled overnight, as a result of a bad story, and that this is a sort of divine retribution. I don't think that we're going to get an exact source of the hack, perhaps, but maybe we'll get enough hints to where it will clue businesses like Facebook in and say, hey, you get in line, or else we will end you, and not just end you legally, we'll end you extrajudicially through these kinds of attacks. And so as a result of today, I would expect to see a new wave of purges on Facebook-owned platforms, and most likely social media at large, if the message is widely received, and social media companies realize that, hey, we got to crack down on right-wingers yet again. It's time for another pogrom against the right, because the masses, the Blue Anon crowd, they are hungry for more sacrifices. Now, I could be totally off base. This could just all be a coincidence. There could be nothing malicious here at all. It could just be somebody at Facebook, screwed up, and this is the result. I don't know. But I thought it'd be fun to try and predict what this is, and give my honest opinion on what I think will happen, and to see how right or wrong I am. I'm not saying that this is all for certain. I just thought it'd be fun to put it out there and say, hey, this is what I think is going on. And hopefully, in due time, we'll learn, what the full truth is, or at least not the full truth, but enough of the truth to where we can draw some more conclusions that aren't just pure speculation. Now, something else that'll be interesting is who they blame for this, because who gets the blame is not necessarily who did it. They could try and make this another Russia story and say, oh my gosh, Russian hackers took down our social media. This is so terrible. Oh, wow. But really, what motivation would the Russians have to try and shut down all of Facebook and these things? I don't know. Obviously the Russian hacker stuff is usually always trumped up anyway, but I'm saying, what would the official narrative be that they're trying to sell? Why would the Russian hackers want to attack Facebook, when the Democrats are the ones mad at Facebook this morning? Maybe we'll see. Maybe what they'll do is try and really prop up some kind of new group like Anonymous that is, very establishment, Democrat oriented, that is, comes out and puts out some statement saying, hey, we attacked Facebook because, they're bad for democracy. I guess that's a possibility, but I still don't think that the media would want to associate, their narratives with cyber terrorism. So, what direction could they take this in to try and spin it to their advantage, regardless of what the truth is? Because, I see downsides all around to really any narrative on this. If you blame it on the Russians, well, then all of a sudden, Democrats will be tuned to all of a sudden say, oh, well, we love Facebook, on a day when delete Facebook was trending on Twitter because, they're being blamed for the insurrection. So if that's the case, well, then you can't have, Democrat voters having to root for Facebook against Russia. And also, you can't have Democrats being on the same side as Russia. If you blame the Russian hackers, you don't want Democrats thinking, well, maybe those Russians are onto something. They're attacking that mean old right-winger Mark Zuckerberg. So far, I haven't seen any initial spin. I just see, it's just the initial report so far about, here's the outages. But there's not been any explanations given yet. But I'd imagine in the next couple of days, if not tomorrow morning, there will be a unified narrative within the media, and it will be used in some fashion to justify a new crackdown on the right on Facebook and other social media sites. And the implication will be that, hey, if we don't do this, we're going to see these websites being taken down for one reason or another. We're going to see more, attacks like the one that appears to have been perpetrated today against Facebook-owned properties. It's going to be a message sent to the users of those sites, and it's going to be a message sent to the sites themselves. So even if this isn't some kind of anti-free speech false flag, it may as well be, because that is how they're going to use it. They're not going to let a good news story like this, although I stopped short of calling it a crisis, but, call it a crisis if you will. They're not going to let this go to waste. So, with that said, I will see you folks back here tomorrow.